What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Quacks and Racks Outdoors podcast. I'm your host, Michael Schnell. Thank you for joining. I believe this is episode 4. So, as I've stated in previous episodes, I'll try to get some content out to you guys about every week or so, probably every 2 weeks, to be honest with you. But just to kick things off, back to what this podcast is and what I want it to be is talking about how we balance our time in the outdoors, chasing our passion for wild game, with our life at home. A lot of us are weekend warriors. We love to get out and hunt. A lot of us probably wish we were paid professionals. But at the same time, that takes a toll on our families because they want us to be outdoors, hopefully want us to be outdoors, chasing our passions. So, but we gotta keep the peace at home, right? As I've said in almost, I think, every episode, I'm very thankful for my wife. She knows hunting is a part of who I am, not just something I do. So I want to have a podcast around that. How do we get our families involved? How do we balance that time away, for that 3 to 4 months that we get at the end of the year, chasing whatever game we're pursuing. So that's why we're here. I'm going to try to kind of switch pace a little bit today. We'll still talk about getting the family involved and things like that. But I also want to talk about, gear, tactics, things like that on this podcast, in addition to that family time. But, we can always involve the family. We can always share those moments with our family. So family is going to be the focus of the podcast, like I've said in every episode before this. But we'll talk about decoys a little bit today. That's going to be today's topic. So but before we get into it, a little bit about life, weather, what's going on in the Schnell household. Weather is rain. Spring is here. I think it's rained the last 3 out of 4 days. So if you can't tell, I record these in my sunroom. If you're watching the YouTube presentation of this, it's finally sunny a little bit. No rain today, first time in 4 days, so it's great. We actually even had some snow this week. So with that said, it feels like spring's here. Spring flowers, or April showers bring May flowers, right? Like that's the saying. But at this point, I would really love for it to stop raining. So I got some yard work that I need to get done with some heavy machinery, and it's definitely putting a delay on that because I'm not taking heavy machinery on my yard. So but other than that, I'm excited that spring's here. Even with all this rain, we got a lot of flooding kind of going on in some fields. Let me tell you about the greenheads I'm seeing. Man, everywhere I go, granted, it's only a pair here and a pair there, made it up, but it is awesome seeing a greenhead in full plume. So birds are working their way back north. The mating season, I think, has truly kicked off here. I'm excited to get the kayak out probably in about a month or so to do some scouting, some spring scouting. So I'm a big believer that where birds mate and pair up for the spring is where they're going to travel back when they come back down south. So we'll start getting the kayak soon. We'll get some content around that for you guys. But yeah, spring is here. I'm excited. I'm ready for warm weather. As much as I love fall when it cools off, I'm definitely ready for some warm weather. So in addition to that, I am running a half marathon a week from tomorrow. So kind of kept that one quiet with you all. But looking forward to it. I think I'm ready. I ran 11 miles a couple weeks ago, so which wasn't terrible. I was able to make it through it no problem. So I think I'm ready. But you may be asking, why am I running a half marathon, right? Well, there's a couple reasons behind it. One is honestly my kids. So probably a couple years ago, probably wasn't the healthiest individual in the world. Didn't really work out. I chewed. Probably drank way more than I should. Still drink though, don't worry. Cheers. We got a drink going while we're talking. But anyways, but yeah, my health, right? I just wanted to make sure I was healthy and around for my kids. So I think it's great to show your kids a healthy lifestyle, things like that. So that's reason number 1. Reason number 2 is actually hunting, right? Down here in southeast Wisconsin, where I hunt a lot, actually anywhere in Wisconsin, primarily around duck hunting, it's muck. We don't have hard bottom places to hunt too often. So, we're drudging through muck up to our knees in a lot of spots. And those are the spots that are the most successful spots because nobody wants to get back there. So unless you have a mud motor, that can get you back there, even though some of these spots are really small and you can't even get a boat back into. People aren't going to be back there. So I'm doing this to hopefully be a lot more successful this coming fall, hunting season wise too. So gotta be able to trudge through the mud, not get winded, gotta be able to get back out. So gotta make sure I'm safe and can get home to my family and kids, right? So that's reason number 2. So we will be running that next weekend. We'll try to get some content around that for you guys. We'll see. I might just kind of do this one on my own. I'm doing another one in May right away. So maybe we'll do some more content around that one. But yeah, that's what we got going on in the Schnell household lately. Like I said, even though it's been raining a lot, the weather's starting to get a little warmer. I had a little Ivan outside with me all day last Saturday, burning some brush I took down over the winter. So we're ready for the outside weather. My kids love to be outside. They've definitely been cooped up, so I'm excited to get them out, help with some outside projects, things like that. So, whether it be hunting or not, my drive for hunting is my passion for the outdoors, but I hope I can get my kids outdoors as much as possible, even if it's not during hunting season. So that's what's been going on in the Schnell household. That said, let's get into today's topic. So I said I was going to kind of change it up a bit today. I want this podcast to be family centric, but I do want to talk about gear, tactics, hunt recaps when the hunting season is going on. So I alluded to it earlier, like I've mentioned a couple times. I want to talk decoys today. So the reason I want to talk decoys is, as you've probably heard me talk in the past few podcasts, and briefly today, over the last year and a half, I have turned slowly into a kayak duck hunter, almost primarily kayak duck hunting. Now, you might ask why, right? There's a couple reasons. Reason number 1 is I'm pretty much a solo hunter right now. I got a couple buddies who duck hunt. They're the ones that actually got me into duck hunting, so I really hope I can get them back out in the near future. I would definitely love to get a group going again, duck hunting, but they both have kids as well, and it's hard for us all to get together. So being a solo hunter, it's convenient, right? As much as having a boat with a mud motor would be great, I'd rather just drop a kayak in the water than having to deal with, launching a boat, things like that. Would it be easier? 100%. But I don't see the need for it right now. So the kayak allows me to get back into spots a lot of people can't actually with a boat. So that's one perk with it. Obviously the downside is having the paddle, right? But going back to being healthy, doing half marathons, things like that, I don't mind it. It's a little workout for me in the morning and on the way back in. So that's reason number 1. Reason number 2, I kind of just mentioned it. I can get into spots a lot of people can't. There were a few spots last year that I got into. I think probably a mud motor probably could have got into in some of them, but some of them were really tiny sloughs that even getting a boat through would be pretty tough. So I can always hop out, walk through cattails, and get back into a small hole, whether it's deep or not. Typically, you can walk on top of the cattails. So that gives me another bonus there. And then lastly is concealment, right? It's a lot easier to hide a 12-foot kayak compared to a 12-foot boat. It's narrower, it's not as deep. I don't have to hide a motor. You can almost use it. I primarily like layout blind hunt out of it. So I have a blind for it. It's all grassed in. So it's a lot easier to hide. So those are probably the 3 main reasons. If you're wondering what I do have an Ascend H12. I kind of went back and forth between the H12 and I think it's the T12. But I wanted the hybrid style where it's like canoe-ish, kayak-ish. Reason being is I thought it would be easier to hide my gear and haul my gear as well, just having that deeper that deeper body. So I know the sit-on kayaks, everybody says they're great as well. It's just as easily to haul stuff on, everyone said, but I don't know. I leaned for the H12. It's what I got. It's very easy to maneuver by myself. And it's worked out great for the time I've had it. So I'm excited to get it out more next year. I kind of had a slow season last year, just due to life, right? Balancing life at home and things like that. But so yeah, it is an Ascend H12. So that said, let's jump into why I want to talk about decoys. So being primarily a kayak duck hunter, weight is definitely something I'm starting to look into more. Some decoys are heavier, some are lighter, but they don't look as good. You know, full disclaimer, I am not sponsored here. So when I start talking about brand names here, I'm not saying yes to one or yes to the other. I am just totally speaking my opinion on what I think, and I'm going to ask for some suggestions while we get going here too. So that said, as I just said, I'm not sponsored, right? So I have a mix of decoys. I run AVNX decoys, I run Flambeau decoys. I'm sure there's one more brand in there as well that I'm not thinking of, but I'm a bargain hunter at this point in time, right? Not being sponsored, I buy what I can when it's on sale. I don't spend too much money on this kind of stuff. I spend as much as I can to get me by and make me successful. But I'm not going to go ahead and break my bank either, you know. As maybe this Quacks and Racks Outdoors takes off, you know, that would probably be the money I spend towards hunting. But, you know, I have a family to feed and things like that too. So I can't just spend all my money on hunting supplies like, you know, 23-year-old me would have done if I was single then. I have been with my wife since high school. So we are high school sweethearts. So I can't do that like a lot of the younger guys can. So I have a whole array of decoys. Now that said, going back to the weight and size thing about kayak duck hunting, I really want to know what your guys' opinions are on what the best decoy is for that kind of thing. So to kind of go through what I have now, and don't judge me because these need to be clean from last year. So I do have AVNX flock decoys. I think they look great. I got a sleeper one here. Like I said, they're not clean, so they look a little dirty in the camera. But I really enjoy these decoys. I think they work great. The flocked heads look great when they're clean. I've had them for about 2 years now. They haven't faded too much. They take the abuse. I am not gentle with my decoys. I throw them, toss them around, throw them in the kayak, throw them in the bed of the truck. I'm not gentle with these, and they've held up to the abuse. So I like the way they look. They tend to work okay in the water if we have a decent wind. If we have no wind, these things are pretty still. And I think one reason for that is these are heavy, in my opinion. So going back to the kayak thing, these things do tend to add a little extra weight than what I like. I would like something lighter possibly in the future, but like I said, I'm a bargain hunter. So that's one decoy I'm running. These are probably the primary decoys that I ran last year because I like the flocked head. I like the paint job. I think they look better. But that said, I also have some cheap Flambeau, totally plastic decoys, right? Now, if you look at the two, this one definitely looks way better. Paint job, everything else. This one, even though it doesn't look as great, it's smaller, it's lighter, and I'm almost leaning towards running these a lot more next year. Reason being is the weight. Totally weight. I have killed ducks over both decoys, so I don't know if this really matters or not. I am a true believer that when you get into ducks, it's more about motion than what they see. Because I feel like they see silhouettes. Maybe when they get really, really close, they can start picking out things. But when they're way up high and you're trying to get them back, they don't care what this looks like. They see something in the water. This could be black for all I care, right? You've heard stories of guys where they just throw out black soda jugs and they're killing ducks over them, right? So I'm really leaning towards running these next year. So I have a dozen of these and I have a dozen of these. My other option is possibly running a mix of both. I'd cut down on some weight, have some better looking decoys mixed in with the cheaper decoys. So, but I don't know what you guys' opinions are. I know, like I said, I'm a firm believer that if they're getting close enough to pick out this over this, you should be killing ducks. That's me. That's my opinion. That's what I've seen in the past. I could be wrong. I don't know, but I'm just telling you guys from my experience, right? The more we delve into this, in the future, I definitely love the fancier decoys, but like I said, I'm on a budget. These tend to work a little better. So, but yeah, let's just look at the size of comparison on these, right? Definitely this one's smaller, it's lighter. I don't think this would hold up as long with it being cheaper, but like I said, I ran these a lot more the last couple years. So, size and weight, man, those are the things. So, that said, I want to pose a question to you guys. Do you guys think, and I would love to hear this feedback, are Heyday decoys worth it? I've heard they're great, they're light, they give you a better look like the AVNXs would, and they probably come at the weight that these are. Are they worth the spend? I would honestly, I know I'm on a budget, and I've said it a million times already on this podcast, but I would probably spend the extra money on Heyday decoys if I knew they were worth it. I don't hunt enough where I'm gonna wear out decoys in a season or two. I'm a weekend warrior. I could probably get by 2, 3, maybe 4 seasons before I really knock the living piss out of these things. So let me know what you think. Are Heydays worth it? The other option I'm looking at is the Final Approach Last Pass decoys. They tend to be a little bit on the smaller side. I've heard they're lighter. You can get them flocked, I do believe. Don't quote me on that. So those are another option I'm looking at. But let me know what you guys think. Like I said, I think a lot of people are looking more into the lightness of decoys, just because a lot of people are doing a lot more walk-in hunting. Even if you're in a boat, right, man, weight gets in the way a lot. Like, you want to be as light as you can. You don't want to be hauling around super heavy decoys, and you don't want stuff that's going to take up space, right? So sometimes smaller is better. So I don't know. I want to hear you guys' thoughts. My main driver, like I said, this year is going to be weight. So I'll probably run these more, or I'll do a mix of the two, depending on how far of a paddle I got to go, things like that. So let me know what you guys think. The other thing I want to talk about is rigging. What are you guys doing for rigging? So I truly believe if you're not using Texas rigs, you're doing it wrong, okay? When I first got into duck hunting with my buddies that I mentioned earlier, we had the old school, let's tie a weight to them, let's tie them to the keel, wrap them up, throw them in a bag. If you don't wrap them up because you're in a hurry, they could turn into a tangled shit mess, things like that. Go with Texas rigs. I've never had a problem with these getting tangled. They don't take up space. I don't even use a bag anymore for the most part. I know some guys still use bags. The only time I use a bag is if I'm walking in and I'm not using a sled. If I'm doing a walk-in hunt, I use a sled. And it's so much easier just to grab the carabiner, unhook it, and start tossing away than having to unwind and then rewind. Go to Texas rigs if you're not using them. If you're using the old school ones, kudos to you. You're wasting your time, in my opinion. Like I said, that's just my opinion. But 100% go to Texas rigs. I typically run 3-footers. I do have some 6-footers out there if I get into deeper water. But the one thing I will be upgrading to, if you can't see here, I just have a little ball weight on these ones. I will be upgrading to some rigs that have the mushroom weights, because I've ran into spots. The very few hard bottom spots that I ran into are all rock, and these little oval weights don't catch on anything, and I've had to chase decoys down a river. So that's the one upgrade I will be doing this year. I'll probably maybe get 4-footers, but the 3-footers seem to do fine everywhere I hunt. So like I said, I hunt in a lot of mucky areas, so you throw your decoy, this weight gets into the muck, and they typically don't go anywhere unless we have a crazy wind day. So highly recommend Texas rigs. I will never go back to a different style rig other than that. But that's me there. So that's decoys, that's weight, that's size. Let's see here, what else did I want to talk about today? You guys don't mind me looking at my notes. Excuse me. All right, so the the last thing I wanted to talk about, I kind of asked about new decoys, is I want to talk about spreads. So when it comes to spreads, like I said, I would love to hear what you guys are running. I'm always open for suggestions, trying new things, things like that. But I'll tell you what I run. So I typically run a spread anywhere from 6 to a dozen and a half. I typically don't do anything more than that. Reason being, obviously, is the kayak, like we talked about, right? Limited space, so I can get a dozen of those ABNXs in. I can get a dozen of those flambeaus in. If I want to go bigger spread, I'll do a dozen and a half. But on top of that, I typically run 2 to 3 goose floaters with me, just for kind of confidence-ish decoys. Kona, pardon the barking. Like I've mentioned in prior podcasts, I don't edit. All right, sorry about that. I actually ended up pausing it because she's going nuts. Quiet. But what kind of spreads you guys run, and let me know. I kind of lost my train of thought there, so I apologize. But like I said, I typically run half a dozen to a dozen and a half, and then I take about 3 goose floaters with me. So, like I said, those are just confidence. I put them off to the side, away from the ducks. Typically, ducks don't like to fly over the goose floaters, so depending on the wind direction, things like that is where I'll position them. But as for the amount of decoys, it's normally a dozen to a dozen and a half. Now, shape, spread, what's it look like? A lot of guys like to run U's, a lot of guys like to run J's. Quite honestly, I think those are great. I think depending on the situation, you may need them, but my biggest thing is play the wind. The wind is going to be what sets you up for success. Now, yes, some ducks won't play the wind. They'll do whatever they want, right? But 90% of the time, ducks are going to land into the wind. So the way I like to throw my decoys is if I'm playing a left to right wind, I'm going to throw my decoys more to the right. I may make a little U, J-ish type thing, but honestly, I'm just trying to build a wall. I think ducks typically don't like to fly over other birds, like I mentioned with the geese. They're going to land short of that wall. So like I said, I might put a little bit of a shape into it. I don't want super straight lines, but I just kind of want a nice wall of random ducks sporadically, and hopefully they're going to stop short of that. So like if they're flying straight into me, if they're landing straight into me, I'm going to put my decoys literally right in front of me. Or what I'll do is I'll try to make like a little runway looking thing. So I'll put some on the right, some on the left, and leave the opening right where my shooting lane is. Things like that. So, and then the other piece of it is I normally always run a spinning decoy. And obviously you want that landing into the wind for the most part if you're only running 1. If you're running 2, you can kind of get away with 1, look in a different direction, things like that. But ideally, my biggest thing is make a wall. Wherever you want them to stop short of, that's where you want your decoys set. That's how my spreads normally are ran. Like I said, I'll add a little U or J shape in there, but for the most part, it's just, let's make a wall. Let's stop the duck short of that wall. Let's hopefully kill them in the decoys. So I'm open for other suggestions, what you guys think. But that's typically how I run my spreads. So other than that, I think that's all I wanted to touch on today. So we talked about decoys' sizes and weights. We talked about spreads a little bit. And then the last thing that we didn't get into, the main meat of the podcast, or the main center focus of the podcast, is how do we get our families involved with these kind of things, right? So my wife will probably never be involved with rigging decoys. That's fine. But my kids, on the other hand, man, when Ivan was younger, he thought they were just toys. So you want to introduce your kids to the outdoors, introduce them to duck hunting, have them come out while you're rigging up decoys, cleaning decoys, let them play with them in the yard just like they would any other toy. I got a couple of videos of Ivan, pictures of Ivan just tossing around decoys. It's probably the cutest thing in the world. We had a pool at our old house. He would literally go find decoys laying in the garage and he would throw them into the pool. It was great. So hopefully a future decoy thrower. We'll see where it goes. But yeah, get your kids can obviously get involved. Like I said, they're just toys to kids. So, like I said, I beat the living piss out of my decoys. So if my kids are going to toss them around in the driveway or things like that, it is what it is. Like I said, I'm not a huge believer that flocked decoys really make a difference. I think ducks will land where they want to land as long as they see the silhouettes. So get your kids involved, let them play with them as toys, do what they want. So, but yeah, so that's what I wanted to talk about today. We got through some decoys. Future episodes, obviously I want to start getting some guests on here. I want to hear about how they balance their times, things like that, but we're still taking off in the beginning stages of this venture I'm starting. So future episodes, probably do some around cooking. I made a killer venison backstrap for Easter, let me tell you. My wife loved it. I asked her the question of, if you didn't know this was venison, would you know it was venison? She said yes, but I think she's biased because she knew it was venison. So I thought it was great, cut like butter. It was probably one of the best venison backstraps I've ever made. So we'll talk recipes probably on one of the coming episodes, what I like to do with the game I harvest. We'll probably start talking about scouting. It's spring. Now is the perfect time to get out scouting for ducks. So they're migrating back north, they're mating. You can see where they're stopping, because typically where they stop going north is where they stop coming south. So start getting out scouting. Weather's getting nice, so we'll start doing some outside videos, some YouTube shorts, things like that, getting decoys ready, getting the kayak out scouting, things like that. But yeah, I think the two primary ones coming up will be around food, everybody loves food, and scouting. So those are probably the next two episodes I'm looking at. And then probably in one more episode around spring clean, getting decoys cleaned up, getting ready for next year. A lot of us just kind of throw our stuff away at the end of the season, so we'll probably do an episode around that. But that's what we got going on. So again, I apologize for the intrusion of Kona barking away. I'll try to get that edited out. But like I mentioned, I typically don't edit these. I just kind of run with it and go with the flow. So I'm new at this. I'm learning as I go. But I appreciate everyone stopping by, listening to the podcast. Hopefully these get a little more in depth, a little meatier in the future. I think we're off to a great start. I want to thank you all for listening again. If you haven't hit subscribe, please hit subscribe, whether that be on the YouTube channel that we got this going on, or the podcast as well. Please subscribe to that. I would really, really appreciate it if we can get this thing rolling. So again, thank you. As we always say in this podcast, get your family involved, chase that passion you have for the outdoors, but make sure you're balancing your life at home as well. So again, thank you, and we'll catch you guys all on the next one. Cheers.